The quantum resonance scanner hummed with an unusual frequency, its delicate tendrils of light probing the vast emptiness between star systems. Senior Navigator Krillax had logged over 10,000 standard cycles tracking spatial anomalies, but nothing could have prepared him for what materialized on the holographic display. At first, it appeared as a metallic ghost, a colossal structure that seemed to defy the fundamental laws of spatial engineering. The object's silhouette shifted and breathed, its hull plates moving with a fluidity that suggested something far beyond mere mechanical construction. Krillax's three-fingered hand trembled as he adjusted the scanner's calibration, certain that the initial reading must be a computational error. But the image remained. The vessel, if one could even call it a vessel, stretched nearly 17 kilometers from bow to stern. Its hull was a complex lattice of adaptive metallic compounds that seemed to absorb and redistribute energy in patterns that made no scientific sense. Weapon systems bristled along its surface like the quills of some prehistoric predator, each module capable of independent reconfiguration. Navigation team, confirm visual scan. Krillax barked into the communication array, his voice betraying a hint of the excitement bubbling beneath his professional demeanor. The response came quickly. Junior analyst Rentera's voice crackled through the ship's communication system. Confirmed, Senior Navigator. The object appears to be a space-faring construct of unprecedented complexity. Initial spectral analysis suggests a composition unlike anything in our galactic databases. What made the vessel truly extraordinary was its apparent state of constant metamorphosis. Sections of the hull seemed to breathe and shift, creating intricate patterns that suggested an almost organic intelligence. Where traditional spacecraft were rigid and predictable, this construct moved with a living purpose that defied conventional understanding. Krillax zoomed in on the vessel's forward section, his specialized visual implants struggling to process the intricate details. Massive sensor arrays folded and unfolded like the appendages of some mechanical creature. Communication nodes pulsed with energy signatures that seemed to dance between electromagnetic states, creating complex mathematical patterns that would take most civilizations centuries to comprehend. Identify origin, he commanded the ship's central intelligence. Moments passed. The ship's computational core worked furiously, cross-referencing every known stellar cartography database. Finally, a response flickered onto the main display. Origin. Sol system. Species classification. Human. Vessel designation. Potentially incomplete. The potentially incomplete notation was itself unprecedented. Most spacefaring species have precise, rigid classification systems, but this human construct seemed to exist in a state of perpetual potential, as if the very concept of a finished design was foreign to its creators. Tactical readings began streaming in. Each weapon system was a marvel of adaptive engineering. Missile tubes could transform into communication arrays. Energy projection systems could instantly reconfigure their molecular structure to serve multiple functions. It wasn't just a weapon of war. It was a living, breathing ecosystem of technological possibility. Navigation team, Krillax announced, his voice now a mixture of professional calm and barely contained wonder. Prepare a comprehensive report. What we're observing is more than a spacecraft. This is a technological paradigm that will require complete re-evaluation of our understanding of spacefaring civilizations. As the scanner continued its detailed analysis, the massive human vessel seemed to pulse, almost as if it were aware of being observed. Its very existence was a challenge, a whisper of potential that echoed through the cold, vast darkness of space. Something fundamental was about to change, and no one was prepared for what that change would mean. Captain Lyra of the Stellar Confederation Archives leaned closer to the holographic projection, her specialized optical implants working overtime to process the intricate details of the human battleship's schematics. What should have been a routine analysis had transformed into the most compelling technological mystery of her career. The technical diagrams defied every established principle of spaceship design. Where most advanced civilizations had long abandoned physical constructions in favor of energy-based transportation, Humans had created something that was part machine, part living organism, part philosophical statement. Each section of the vessel told a story of radical innovation. The propulsion system alone was a masterpiece of engineering that made Lyra's breath catch. Traditional faster-than-light drives used predictable quantum tunneling techniques, but this human design employed a method that seemed to fold space itself. Microscopic gravitational manipulators worked in perfect, almost musical synchronization, creating wave patterns that suggested the ship didn't so much travel through space as negotiate with it. Computer, Lyra commanded, analyze primary structural integrity algorithms. The archival intelligence hummed, its quantum processors struggling to decrypt the ship's design language. Most vessels followed standardized engineering principles: modular components, predictable stress distributions, linear problem-solving approaches. This human construct was different. Its structural integrity seemed to be a living, breathing concept. Sections of the hull could redistribute molecular density in milliseconds. A puncture in one area would trigger an instantaneous response where surrounding materials would flow and reconstruct, healing like organic tissue. It wasn't just adaptive engineering. It was a form of technological immunology that challenged fundamental understanding of material science. The weapon systems were equally mind-bending. Traditional space combat relied on energy projection and kinetic impact. These human designs operated on principles that seemed to blur the line between weapon and communication device. A single weapon module could transform from a long-range particle cannon to a complex communication array, to a defensive energy shield, all within fractions of a second. Dr. Rentok, the Confederation's leading xenoengineering specialist, had spent 3 standard cycles analyzing just the ship's communication systems. It's not just a network, he had reported in his last transmission. It's a living neural network that learns and adapts. Each communication module doesn't just transmit, it interprets, predicts, and evolves. Lyra scrolled through the power distribution schematics. Most spacefaring civilizations maintained rigid energy management systems. This human design was a symphony of dynamic resource allocation. Fusion reactors, quantum capacitors, and exotic matter generators worked in a dance of unprecedented complexity. When one system experienced stress, others would instantly compensate, redistributing energy with a fluidity that suggested consciousness. The crew quarters were equally fascinating. Unlike the sterile, efficiency-focused designs of most advanced civilizations, these spaces were designed for human complexity. Modular living areas could transform based on crews' psychological needs. Art studios could become medical facilities. Recreation zones could reconfigure into emergency command centers. It was engineering that understood humanity was more than a collection of biological functions. Most striking was the vessel's computational core. Traditional AI systems were linear, predictable. This human design was a multi-dimensional intelligence that seemed to breathe with potential. It didn't just process information. It interpreted, imagined, and created. Impossible, Lyra whispered, her hand tracing the holographic outline. But it was there, a testament to a species that viewed technological limitations not as barriers, but as invitations to reimagine the possible. The human battleship wasn't just a machine. It was a floating universe of innovation, a metal titan that sang the complex, unpredictable song of human potential. The Omega Nebula stretched like a bruise across the stellar cartography, its swirling gases creating a backdrop of impossible beauty. It was here that the first true demonstration of human technological prowess would unfold, a moment that would redefine warfare across the galaxy. The U.S. Indomitable emerged from quantum transit with a grace that defied its massive size. Sensor arrays from multiple alien observation platforms tracked its approach, each system struggling to comprehend the behemoth before them. Commander Elena Rodriguez sat in the central command chair, her posture relaxed yet charged with an electric potential that seemed to resonate through the entire vessel. Incoming hostile fleet, Lieutenant Marcus Chen announced, his voice calm. 12 Kreldari battlecruisers forming standard attack formation. The ship's computational core, A quantum intelligence that was more than mere machine began its intricate calculations. But this was no simple defensive preparation. It was a complex dance of potential outcomes, each scenario analyzed and reimagined in milliseconds. The Krell fleet approached with the confidence of a species that had dominated stellar combat for millennia. Their weapon systems were the product of centuries of refined military engineering. Precise, ruthless, seemingly perfect. They expected another routine pacification mission. They were catastrophically mistaken. As the first energy weapons charge, the U.S. Indomitable began its impossible transformation. Hull plates shifted like living tissue, creating complex geometric patterns that seemed to absorb and redirect incoming energy. What should have been devastating weapon strikes became nothing more than gentle caresses against the ship's adaptive surface. But defense was merely the opening movement of this technological symphony. Weapon systems across the Indomitable's hull began to reconfigure with a fluidity that bordered on the miraculous. Missile tubes collapsed and expanded, energy projectors twisted and realigned. Communication arrays became weapon platforms in the span of microseconds. It wasn't just adaptation, it was a complete reinvention of combat methodology. Lieutenant Chen's fingers danced across holographic interfaces that seemed to anticipate his thoughts. Primary targeting systems engaging, he reported, his voice almost clinical. But there was an underlying current of something else. Pride, excitement, the pure joy of witnessing technological poetry in motion. The first Krell battlecruiser never saw the attack coming. What appeared to be a defensive reallocation of energy suddenly transformed into a precision strike that disabled the ship's primary systems, not through brute force, but through a surgical deconstruction of its technological architecture. Commander Rodriguez watched the tactical display, her eyes reflecting the complex mathematical patterns of the engagement. This wasn't warfare as other species understood it. This was a conversation, a negotiation conducted through the language of technology and potential. One by one, the Krell fleet found themselves systematically dismantled. But it wasn't destruction, it was deconstruction. Weapon systems were neutralized, communication networks were reprogrammed, entire ships were rendered inert without a single direct strike. The ship's medical teams were already preparing reconstruction protocols for the enemy crews. Survival was always the primary objective, a concept that seemed alien to most spacefaring militaries. As the last Krell battlecruiser powered down, the U.S. Indomitable resumed its original course as if nothing had happened. No fanfare, no celebration, just a simple return to its mission. In the observation rooms of a dozen alien civilizations, scholars and military strategists watched the recording in stunned silence. This was more than a battle. This was a fundamental reimagining of technological potential. The dance was over. The lesson had been delivered. The Orion sector transformed into a canvas of technological potential when the Krell battle fleet emerged from quantum transit. Their formation was a masterpiece of traditional military strategy. 12 battlecruisers arranged in a perfect geometric pattern, weapon systems charged and ready for what they believed would be a routine pacification mission. They were catastrophically mistaken. The USS Indomitable appeared almost casually, its massive form materializing with a grace that defied its enormous size. Senior Tactical Coordinator Alexander Volkov watched the incoming fleet with a calm that bordered on meditation. His hands moved across holographic interfaces that seemed to anticipate his thoughts before he could form them. Incoming hostiles, Lieutenant Maria Rodriguez announced. Her voice carried no tension, no fear, just a clinical observation of an unfolding scenario. The ship's computational core, a quantum intelligence that was equal parts scientific instrument and creative problem solver, began its intricate analysis. This wasn't simple threat assessment. It was a complex exploration of potential interactions, each microsecond revealing thousands of possible outcomes. Krell tactical systems began their standard assault protocols. Energy weapons charge. Missile systems prepared their initial salvo. Every movement was precise, calculated, following military doctrines that had proven effective for millennia. But the U.S. Indomitable existed in an entirely different realm of technological interaction. As the first energy weapons discharge, the ship's adaptive hull began its impossible transformation. Molecular structures shifted with a fluidity that defied conventional physics. Incoming weapon strikes didn't just get deflected, they were absorbed, analyzed, and partially redirected. Lieutenant Rodriguez's fingers danced across her interface, initiating adaptive response. She reported, her tone suggesting she might as well have been ordering coffee. The ship's weapon systems began a complex reconfiguration that was less an attack and more a sophisticated conversation. Missile tubes collapsed and expanded. Energy projectors twisted into configurations that seemed to defy known geometric principles. Communication arrays became precision targeting systems in milliseconds. What occurred next was not a battle in any traditional sense. It was a technological negotiation of unprecedented complexity. The first Krell-Derry battlecruiser found its primary systems systematically dismantled, not through brute force, but through a surgical deconstruction of its technological architecture. Weapon systems went offline. Communication networks were gently reprogrammed. The entire vessel was rendered inert without a single direct destructive strike. Commander Elena Rodriguez watched the tactical display, her eyes reflecting the complex mathematical patterns of the engagement. Each movement was a carefully considered response, each action a potential pathway to resolution. Our objective is not destruction, she had trained her crew. Our objective is understanding and transformation. The remaining Krell-Derry fleet found themselves caught in a technological web that was simultaneously defensive and communicative. Weapon systems were neutralized. Communication networks were redirected. The entire confrontation became a demonstration of technological potential rather than a traditional conflict. Most remarkably, the U.S. Indomitable's medical teams were already preparing reconstruction protocols for the disabled enemy vessels. Survival wasn't just an afterthought, it was a fundamental principle of engagement. As the last Krell-Derry battlecruiser powered down, the human vessel resumed its original course with the same casual grace it had entered the sector. No fanfare, no celebration, just a simple continuation of its mission. In observation rooms across multiple star systems, military strategists and technological experts watched the recording in stunned silence. This was more than a battle. This was a fundamental reimagining of technological interaction. The universe had just witnessed something extraordinary, and it was only the beginning. Deep within the USS Indomitable, life pulsed with an energy that defied traditional understanding of military vessels. This was no mere machine of war. It was a floating civilization, a microcosm of human potential compressed into a technological marvel. In the Central Recreation Hub, Dr. Maya Rodriguez finished her quantum mechanics lecture to a mixed audience of engineers, medical staff, and support personnel. The room itself was a testament to human adaptability. Walls could shift to create intimate learning spaces or expand into community gathering areas. A holographic display behind her showed complex mathematical models that danced and transformed with her explanation. The universe doesn't follow rules, she explained, her hands tracing intricate patterns in the air. It suggests possibilities, and our job is to listen, to interpret, to create. Nearby, in a maintenance corridor, 3 engineers had turned their daily calibration work into an impromptu percussion concert. Maintenance tools became instruments, their rhythmic strikes creating a complex symphony that echoed through the ship's metal corridors. It was engineering as art, problem-solving as creativity. The ship's art studio told another part of the story. Canvases captured the incredible journey of the vessel. Abstract representations of stellar movements, portraits of crew members, intricate designs that blended technological schematics with emotional landscapes. A young technician named Carlos worked on a massive mural that depicted the ship's recent engagement, transforming a military encounter into a complex emotional narrative. In the hydroponics section, botanical engineers maintained an ecosystem that was part scientific research, part artistic expression. Plants from dozens of Earth's ecosystems grew in carefully balanced environments. Each section was a living experiment in adaptation and survival. Rare orchids grew alongside experimental crop variants that could potentially sustain human life in the most challenging environments. The medical bay was a universe of its own. Dr. HFY supervised a team that was simultaneously treating crew members, conducting advanced research, and developing new medical technologies. A holographic display showed multiple ongoing research projects, from neural regeneration techniques to adaptive immunology that could potentially revolutionize medical understanding. "We're not just healing," Dr. Kimathi often told her team. "We're reimagining the potential of human biological systems." The ship's quantum computing center was a cathedral of human imagination. Researchers from multiple disciplines worked together, their workstations fluid spaces that could transform based on collaborative needs. A physicist might be working alongside a cultural anthropologist, their conversations blurring the lines between scientific disciplines. In the crew quarters, personal spaces told individual stories. A memorial wall honored those who had come before, with holographic displays showing personal histories, achievements, dreams. It wasn't just a record. It was a living connection to human history. During the ship's communal mealtime, the diversity was breathtaking. Cuisine from every corner of Earth was prepared, shared, celebrated. A chef might be discussing quantum mechanics with an engineer, while a musician planned her next performance. Conversations flowed like the ship's adaptive systems, unpredictable, dynamic, full of potential. This was the true power of the U.S. Indomitable. Not its weapon systems, not its technological capabilities, but the living, breathing ecosystem of human potential that it carried. Commander Rodriguez understood this better than anyone. Walking through the ship's corridors, she saw not a military vessel, but a floating representation of human complexity. Each person, each system, each moment was a testament to humanity's greatest strength, the ability to imagine, to create, to transform. The metal titan breathed with human spirit, a living symphony of possibility racing through the infinite darkness of space. The Galactic Confederation's most advanced psychological warfare analysts gathered in a secure conference chamber, their holographic displays flickering with the latest data from the human battleship encounters. Senior strategist Vorlek stood at the center, his multiple optical sensors focused on the complex information streams. "This isn't just technology," he began, his voice a low resonance that carried decades of strategic experience. "This is something entirely different. The human battleship's true weapon wasn't its impressive arsenal or adaptive technology. It was something far more complex, a psychological approach to conflict that defied every established military doctrine in known space. Traditional warfare relied on predictable patterns, establish threat levels, calculate potential responses, create strategic models based on historical data. But the human approach shattered these fundamental principles. Each encounter revealed layers of psychological complexity that left alien strategists bewildered. The U.S. Indomitable didn't just respond to threats. It anticipated them with an almost prescient understanding. It wasn't reading tactical data. It was reading intentions, motivations, the very psychology of conflict itself. Communications intercepted from the ship showed something unprecedented. Crew members discussed potential conflict scenarios not as military objectives, but as complex problem-solving exercises. A typical tactical meeting became a collaborative brainstorming session where every perspective was valued, where creativity was as important as technical expertise. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's personal logs became a particular point of fascination for the analysis team. Her approach to potential conflicts was simultaneously empathetic and strategic. One entry particularly stood out. "Conflict is a conversation we haven't yet learned to have properly. Our job isn't to destroy. It's to understand, to find solutions that transform the very nature of the confrontation." The ship's computational core operated on principles that blurred the line between artificial intelligence and collective consciousness. It didn't just process information. It interpreted emotional and psychological nuances that most AI systems would completely miss. During one recorded encounter, the battleship actually paused a potential conflict to establish communication protocols. Instead of immediate defensive or offensive actions, it initiated a complex dialogue that seemed designed to understand the underlying motivations of the potential threat. Vorlek pulled up a series of tactical simulations. In each scenario, traditional military approaches would have resulted in immediate escalation. The human vessel, however, found solutions that were almost diplomatic in nature. Weapon systems would reconfigure to demonstrate capability without actual aggression. Communication networks would open channels of understanding. "They're fighting a war on a level we can't even comprehend," whispered junior analyst Rentera, her voice a mixture of fear and admiration. The psychological warfare went deeper. The very presence of the human battleship created a complex emotional response in potential adversaries. It wasn't just about physical intimidation. The ship projected a sense of potential, a promise of solutions beyond simple conflict. Crew interactions revealed another layer of psychological complexity. During high-stress situations, the ship's systems seemed to adapt to individual and collective emotional states. Lighting would shift. Ambient sounds would change. The entire vessel became a complex emotional support system that enhanced crew performance through psychological understanding. One intercepted training session showed something truly remarkable. Instead of traditional combat drills, the crew engaged in complex scenario planning that emphasized empathy, creative problem-solving, and understanding alternative perspectives. "Our greatest weapon," one instructor was recorded saying, "is our ability to imagine solutions that don't yet exist." As the analysis team continued their research, a fundamental truth became clear. The human battleship wasn't just a technological marvel. It was a living proof of a radical concept. That true strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the capacity to understand, to adapt, to transform. The psychological weapon was humanity itself, unpredictable, complex, endlessly potential. The Stellar Confederation's Grand Assembly convened in a moment of unprecedented tension. Holographic displays from across known space projected the collected data about human technological advancement. Representatives from thousands of civilizations sat in stunned silence, their collective understanding of progress crumbling before their eyes. Arch Coordinator Zarellen stood at the central platform, her translucent neural implants pulsing with the weight of the information she was about to present. "What we are witnessing," she began, her voice resonating through multiple linguistic translation matrices, "is not simply a technological breakthrough. It is a fundamental reimagining of what potential means." The comprehensive analysis of human technological development revealed something far more profound than mere scientific advancement. It was a complete philosophical approach to existence that challenged every established concept of progress, innovation, and interaction. Most advanced civilizations had long ago settled into predictable patterns of technological development. They optimized. They refined. They incrementally improved existing systems. Humans did something entirely different. They constantly reimagined the very foundations of what was possible. The U.S. Indomitable became more than a single vessel. It was a living case study of an entirely new approach to technological and social evolution. Each system, each design choice told a story of radical thinking that defied conventional understanding. Dr. Krultak, the Confederation's leading xenotechnological analyst, presented a comprehensive breakdown. "Observe how they approach technological challenges," he explained, holographic representations dancing around him. "Where we see limitations, they see opportunities. Where we optimize, they transform." The ship's communication systems were a prime example. Traditional interstellar communication relied on fixed quantum entanglement protocols. The human design was a living, adaptive network that could reconfigure itself based on contextual understanding. It wasn't just transmitting information. It was interpreting, learning, evolving with each interaction. Planetary development studies showed a similar pattern. While most civilizations approached resource management with rigid, efficiency-focused models, human colonies demonstrated an almost organic approach to technological integration. Entire ecosystems were designed as complex, adaptive systems that could transform and grow. The psychological implications were even more profound. The human approach suggested that technology was not a tool to be controlled, but a living extension of collective potential. Each technological advancement was viewed not as an endpoint, but as a beginning, a platform for further exploration and understanding. Representatives from the Quantum Preservation Council found themselves particularly challenged. Their entire civilization was built on the principle of maintaining technological stability. The human approach suggested something radical. That stability itself was a limiting concept. They don't just solve problems. One council member was overheard saying, "They fundamentally change the nature of what a problem can be." The economic implications were equally staggering. Traditional galactic commerce was built on predictable technological exchange. The human approach suggested a model of innovation that was simultaneously collaborative and unpredictable. Technologies weren't products, they were conversations. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's research papers, now widely distributed across multiple civilizations, became required reading. Her core philosophy was simple yet revolutionary. Innovation is not about creating perfect solutions. It's about creating platforms for continuous discovery. As the assembly continued, a fundamental truth became clear. The human technological approach was more than a method of development. It was a comprehensive philosophy of existence, a way of understanding the universe that saw potential in every challenge, opportunity in every limitation. The U.S. Indomitable was more than a vessel. It was a message, a living testament to a radical concept of what intelligence, creativity, and potential could mean. The galaxy would never be the same. The vast darkness of space held its breath. Trillions of kilometers from Earth, the last transmission of humanity's technological spirit, continued to resonate through the cosmic tapestry. Archivist Lyra of the Galactic Preservation Network carefully examined the final comprehensive record of human technological development. What she discovered was far more than a historical document. It was a blueprint of possibility that would reshape civilizational understanding for millennia to come. The U.S. Indomitable wasn't just a vessel. It was the culmination of a species' entire approach to existence, a floating universe of potential that challenged every established concept of technological and social development. Archives reveal a stunning truth. Humanity's most profound strength wasn't found in its technological achievements, but in its fundamental approach to challenges. Where most civilizations saw boundaries, humans saw invitations. Where others sought to control, humans sought to understand and transform. Dr. Marcus Chen's final research logs, preserved in the ship's quantum archives, captured this philosophy perfectly. Innovation isn't about creating perfect solutions, one entry read. It's about creating platforms for continuous discovery. Every limitation is an opportunity. Every challenge is an invitation to reimagine what's possible. The vessel's computational core became a living museum of human potential. Millions of solved problems, creative solutions, and innovative approaches were stored not as static data, but as dynamic, evolving knowledge systems. Each solution was a seed of potential, capable of growing into entirely new approaches to understanding. Alien civilizations that study the archives discovered something profound. Humanity's technological legacy wasn't about specific inventions or achievements. It was a comprehensive philosophy of existence, a way of seeing the universe as a canvas of endless possibility. The ship's adaptive systems told a story of continuous transformation. Communication networks that could restructure themselves. Technological platforms that learned and grew. Design principles that saw every challenge as an opportunity for creative reimagining. Most remarkable was the human approach to collective intelligence. Where most civilizations created rigid hierarchical systems, human teams operated like living, breathing ecosystems. Ideas flowed. Perspectives shifted. Innovation was a collaborative dance of collective potential. Preservation teams discovered entire libraries of human creativity. Art that explored technological concepts. Musical compositions that were actually complex mathematical explorations. Scientific papers written as narrative experiences that challenged the very concept of academic communication. The U.S. Indomitable's final mission logs revealed something extraordinary. Even in its most challenging moments, the vessel's crew approached potential conflicts with a combination of preparedness and profound empathy. Weapon systems were design platforms for communication. Defensive capabilities were invitations to understanding. "We don't conquer," one crew log noted. "We connect. We don't defeat. We transform." As galactic civilizations continued to study the human archives, a fundamental shift began to occur. Traditional concepts of technological development were being rewritten. Innovation was no longer seen as a linear progression, but as a dynamic, collaborative ecosystem of potential. The ship became more than a historical artifact. It was a living message, a testament to a species that understood the most profound technology was the ability to imagine beyond current limitations. In the cold, infinite darkness of space, the last echoes of human potential continued to resonate, not as a final statement, but as an ongoing invitation. An invitation to see the universe not as it is, but as it could be.